Hello, welcome to day 14 of machine learning interview preparation. Today we'll be discussing about polymorphism in Python with the example of function overriding. In the last video, we discussed about operator overloading. It was an another example of polymorphism in Python. But today we'll focus on function overriding. So let me show you an example, and then we'll go into the definition. So polymorphism happens. One way polymorphism can occur in inheritance by overriding the parent class method uh, in a child class. So I'll write a code that will explain how it happens. So let me just write a simple example of inheritance. So I'll take an example of single inheritance. Class animal ANI MAL. Let's say it has a method called speak self. Let's say I want to print animal speaks. So this is one class called animal. Similarly, I'll create another class. Let's say dog is an. So I'll inherit the properties and method of animal inside the dog. So ANIMAL. Let me inherit all the property INIT properties and method here. Self. So I can use super on single inheritance as we discussed on the previous video. Init. So I have inherited all the methods and attribute of animal class inside dog class. So what will happen? I mean, let's say okay, I'll create an example. Let's say I have a object called dog d1. If I call d1 dot speak, it will call a parent method called speak because dog class don't have that speak method. So it will call this method from a parent class. So what if dog class also has the same function speak? The implementation might be different, but the function name could be same, right? Print dog speak. Okay, dog barks. In this case, what will happen? So I created a dog object d1 object, and I'm calling the speak function. Both parent class and a child class has a same method implementation. I mean, same method d1, same method called speak. So I'm calling that speak method using d1 object, a dog object. So in this case, it will call the child class method because uh, child class method overrides the parent class method. If child and parent has the same function or a method name, always child class method is called first. So d1 dot speak called this speak method instead of parent class method. So this is one example of function overriding. We are overriding the parent class function or a method inside the child class. So if you go here, polymorphism can occur in inheritance by overriding. So we are overriding the parent class method speak on a child class. So we are overriding parent class method or a function speak on a child class. So when child class has a method with the same name, parameters, and return type is a method in a parent class, child class method overrides the parent class method. So if they both have a same name, child class will override the parent class method. So that is the example of polymorphism. But there is one interesting concept called MRO. I have like added this explanation here. You can go into GitHub and look into that. This is the detailed example. I mean, it's the same example as in the above, but you can look into this as well. So let me go to MRO, method resolution order. So I'll go into the definition later on, but I'd like to show you a scenario where MRO is important. So first, let me show you an example. Uh, s- if you look here, what kind of inheritance is this? If you look here, we have a class A, we have a class B, and we have passed class A and class B inside class C. So it is an example of multiple inheritance. Multiple inheritance. So class A also has show method, class B also has a show method, and class C also has show method. uh, Let me just clear the screen. So our two parent class also has a show method, and child class also has a show method. So if I call, let me create an object called c1 equals to c1 dot show. So if I call this function show, what will be the output? I mean, if you think, C is a child class object, so it is an example of multiple inheritance. C is child class object, and this child class object, I mean C is a C is a child class, and C1 is a child class object, and C1 is calling show method, and we have show method inside C, so it will print C by example that we discussed earlier. So it will print C. But if I modify this function, let's say if I modify this function and remove this and call this, so we have class A, class B, class A and B is inherited on the class C, and we don't have show method on a child class. So we don't have show method on a child class. That should we should note. We don't have a show method in child class. What will happen if I call this method? The question is, what will happen if I call this method? Since class C don't have so method, the object will try to call so method from parent class, parent class. So since C class doesn't have method so, the object of C will try to call so from a parent class. But we have two parents here. But we have, however, we have two parents here. They both have so method. Which one should the object C1 dot so call? So this is the question, this is the problem. I mean, this example or this scenario can be asked on interview as well. So you are given a class A and B, and class C inherits A and B. So it is an example of multiple inheritance. Class A and B both have a show function, but child class C does not have that function. So if I create an object of a class C and call the show method, which one should we call? Should we call show from A, or should we call show from B? So that is the typical problem. So if I call this one, it will call sorry, I have to run this one. So it will call an A. So it called class A class A method. So it will call it called this method. Why? It is because Python implements C3 linearization algorithm. So we'll go into that. So let me come back to it. So it called an A, right? So it called an A. You have to note that. I'll come back to this example again. So it called an A. So this is another example. I mean, same example. It called an A. So so it is due to MRO. Sorry, MRO determines. So what MRO does is it is a method resolution order. So in multiple inheritance, it is difficult to know which function to call by just looking. I mean, if you know the theory, you will know it. But like, if you think the scenario, it is difficult to know, right? So the only way to identify that is through MRO. So if I do C, the class is C, and I want to know MRO of C. Method resolution. So MRO means method resolution order, right? So MRO means method resolution. So MRO means method resolution order. So if you look here, we printed the first object is C class. So always we prioritize the child class method over parent class. So priority one would be show method from class C. Since we don't have show method from class C, the second priority would be for A, because we inherited A first. That's why in this example C1.show printed A. So this is how we would know which method will be called in multiple inheritance in this kind of scenario. So that is an example of MRO. And Python uses C3 linearization algorithm to determine the order. So to determine the MRO or the method resolution order, Python uses C3 linearization algorithm. That is an example of MRO. So it is same like previously I did. I'm just let's say what I was here. So we have class A, we have class B, we have inherited class A and B in C. So if we call C dot so, it will call A, because we have inherited A first. The MRO of class C is, so highest priority is for show method in a class C. Since we don't have show method on a class C, we have to go to A. Do we have show method on a A? Yes. So we printed A. So that was the example. Another example is same. I mean, okay, let me show you another example of diamond inheritance and MRO. So here we have class A, we have inherited class A on B. They both have so, and we have class C where we inherited A as well. So there are two. I mean, from A to B there is single inheritance, and from A to C there is single inheritance, and we are passing B and C on our class D. So if I try to call D dot so, what would be the output? The output would be B, because the first argument is B and it tries to find so inside the B. So we printed B here. If you look the MRO order, the highest priority would be D. We don't have so on a D. Then it will go to B because the second priority is B, and we have so method on a B. That's why it printed B. So this is another example of MRO. I have explained the theory here as well on the notebook. You can look into that and see the output. In summary, function overriding is an example of operator overloading, where child class redefines a method or redefines a method from the parent class. And finally, MRO is a Python rule that decides which method to call in a multiple inheritance scenario. So if we have multiple inheritance like this one is the simplest example of MRO. A and B is passed to C. This is an example of multiple inheritance. If we create an object of C and call the show method, we do both A and B have a show method, but we have written A first, then the priority of show method inside A would be high. So that is how we can find MRO, or also or aka method resolution order. So this method resolution order uses C3 linearization algorithm to determine that order. So that is the whole conclusion of this video. Thank you for watching. See you on the next one.